Hi, Kyra.
Hi.
Thank you so much for doing this.
Oh, thank you so much for interviewing me.
Let's talk about this living with Chucky. First of all, I think we all know why you were interested in this topic, considering that pretty much it's your entire family.
Yeah. Yep.
For you, tackling this and getting to really dig into this and that family aspect of it, what was that like for you?
Kind of like a full circle moment from my childhood. These were people's names like Don Mancini and David Kirschner. I always knew of them and kind of who they were, and they were associated with Chucky. And then now, like if I had told 5-year-old me that I would be sitting here today and make a documentary on it, I would not believe myself. But it's been so lovely to kind of uh, have this thing that I thought was something that was taking my dad away from home for long periods of time. And this thing I felt so separated from, it has now become this thing that I'm now involved in and appreciate more and feel a part of the family. And it's been a wonderful journey.
One of the things that really stood out to me watching this documentary is you've made this franchise that people so love into this wholesome, really, which is kind of it's fascinating, really, when you think about it.
Yeah, a killer doll is wholesome. Yes.
the It's incredible to watch all these people be together and talk about their experiences and talk about for you putting this together as a documentarian and trying to separate yourself when you're putting it together as a filmmaker.
Oh, goodness. It was difficult. I have a new appreciation for documentary editors and filmmakers because you're really piecing the story together and editing, which is crazy. You should see all the transcriptions I have. The book is like this big. Um, but yeah, it was kind of like making sure because I knew I wanted to touch on the personal aspects of the familial thing, and I thought that that's what made this documentary more unique than your typical horror behind the scenes or making of. So I knew I wanted to touch on that, but then there was so much more else to cover. It's been 35 years of making this movie franchise, as well as like we need to talk on CGI versus practicality. We need to talk about the switch in puppeteers. We need to talk about the budgets being cut. There was so much to be involved in this short amount of time. So, really, as a filmmaker, it was trying to make sure that I was covering all the topics that people usually have questions on that franchise, but in a way that hopefully was cohesive and made sense and was just honestly flowing. Like, if you watch it and you think, oh, that's easy, I could have made that, then I did my job because will tell you that was the hardest thing of my life to put together.
I love that you made time for the queer LGBT part of the story as well, because that has become such an important part of what Chucky has become.
Yeah, it's actually interesting. I came out as LGBTQ while making this documentary as well, which was super funny. I was like, how fitting, I'm making a documentary on like a gay horror franchise, and now I myself am under the gay umbrella. I love that for me. But I think that's one of the things that have kept the franchise going on for so long is that as times have become more progressive and people have become more progressive, so has the franchise. It hasn't stayed in 1988 with those same stereotypes of the horror genre. It's progressed, and now in season 2 we're having Glenn and Glenda come back. It's so amazing. You got to touch on it. It's like one of the gayest franchises. You have to talk about it being gay.
Absolutely. And one of the great things that this documentary does and doesn't necessarily linger on, but it does shine a light on is this kind of iconic place that Don Mancini really deserves.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so rare that somebody gets to be involved in something for so long that was their baby. Because time and time again we see, higher ups or production companies, try to take, copyright or whatever and make it their own. And I mean, we had that moment with the 2019, reboot slash remake since MGM owned the rights to the first film. But in reality, it's really been a singular voice, which is so cool. And I think what's great now is that Dawn has not only just like movies, because we were getting them, 4 years apart, 6 years apart. He now has, 8 hours to play in this world that he's created. I think now is finally the time where he's getting more recognition for, what he's really done for the franchise, and really getting a chance to play himself with things that he's always wanted to do but never had the opportunity. So I think that's so cool for him.
And then the aspect of Brad and Fiona being part of this, and the passing of the torch in a way that goes on between them in the movie franchise is so exciting.
I know, and it's so interesting. I was so bummed because we don't talk about the series as much, but it was like so funny. They're talking in Cult about how Fiona is basically playing Brad, which is already insane. And then we get to season 1 of Chucky, and Fiona literally played her dad with prosthetics and stuff. And so I was like, dang it, that came out after this. But it's so cool. It really was, the ultimate passing of the baton, that not only was she embodying him, but then she actually was playing young Brad, which is so cool and weird. But that's the wonderful thing about this franchise, is like it's not afraid to go there.
Very true. Does Jennifer Tilly, does she change ever? She seems like she looks the same as she did in 1998 to today.
Yeah, I'm convinced her and Elvira are just like vampires. I don't know what it is. And I actually worked with Elvira over COVID for the Hocus Pocus Halloween, event for charity. And both of them, I'm just like, what is your skincare routine? It's insane.
She just seems like an absolute delight to be around.
Oh my gosh, Jennifer Tilly is so funny and fun. I think the hardest thing was she talks a little fast because she's so excited about everything that she has to say. So that was actually like a thing in editing. I was like, slow down, Jennifer. But she's fantastic.
Was there one moment for you that stands out of putting this together that you're like, okay, this part I absolutely know is going in the documentary, everything else I've got to assemble, but this part, this is perfect?
Honestly, that moment with Brad Dourif when he talks about what it's like to play somebody who's evil and embody like a serial killer. I thought in that moment when it was happening in front of me, when he was talking about, humanity is evil and we all have these parts of ourselves, but he's just being able to have the opportunity to explore that. I was just like, my jaw hit the floor, and I was like, oh, this is in the movie.
Yeah.
This is wisdom, and it was so great to have Lynn Shay come in and follow that up as well with playing evil characters as well, because she had some great little nuggets of what that was like as well.
Now, from the beginning, were you planning eventually on turning the camera around on yourself and, hey, this is me and my part of this?
Yes, it was kind of just a question of where. In reality, I thought it would be introduced right away, and so it's more of like following me through this journey of meeting these people. But I just had interviews, so some were from when I was in film school, some we just got last year, and all these things. And so not the entire thing was shot observational. And so it didn't allow me to really dive into that perspective of doing it right off the bat. And also, then deciding we needed to see the history of each of the films and talk about each of them first. Deciding on that, the structure became a little awkward because, my dad didn't come in till Seed. So there was a big gap. So I was trying to figure out where the opportunity would be, whether it should be from the beginning when we come into Seed, but then when we come into Seed, it's when my dad comes in, and I didn't want to overshadow that with, hey, it's me. And I thought his coming into the franchise was definitely more important, and talking about that switch in puppeteer work was important. So when Fiona references my dad sitting on the floor in the corner during her interview, I was like, I think this is our perfect moment here to kind of break the act and use whatever camera we had that was filming it.
I thought structurally it worked brilliantly.
Oh, thank you.
And I love the way also that you've kind of given Curse of Chucky and Cult kind of their own place, because people can outside of the fandom can tend to put those aside because they weren't big theatrical releases. You've really put them back into the canon now.
Oh, yay. Yeah, it was strange that they didn't get a theatrical release, especially Cult, considering that Curse did well. It was Dawn coming back into being scary, and then it was received well by fans. I was like sure that Cult would have a theatrical release, and it didn't. So I'm happy that it's kind of getting talked about more, and the struggles that they had of making those films that didn't even get a theatrical release. It's bonkers to me. So I'm happy that it's being able to have more light shed on it.
Well, it's here. You're putting this out for the world to see now. How does it feel?
Not real. I've been making this thing for so long. It doesn't feel real. I honestly am like, yeah, that took forever. And already my like brain is blocking out the trauma of editing at like 2 a.m. of how am I piecing this together? But it feels so great. And I think the most rewarding thing is seeing people who are my age or older really resonating with the documentary and appreciating it. And it feels nice to know that people can feel how much effort was put into making the documentary, which means everything. And I'm like, okay, so I did it, and there's reason for the madness.
And now you're part of this now. You're part of the Chucky family. You're part of the overall thing. Like, this is the official like feeling documentary that is all part of this.
Yeah, and that's the best thing is like not only was it, a film that I set out to do, but it really did feel like I was coming into these two worlds that felt so separated and now have come together so lovely. And I just saw Don like 2 weekends ago filming Chucky season 2 promo, and he was so congratulatory about the documentary. He's been so busy show running season 2, so for him to like take a second and say sing some praise was so nice. And to see like Alex, Vincent, and Christina Elise, when they watched it, their email responses were so lovely. And I'm like, okay, good. I did justice for the family that has now accepted me into their home, which is great.
That's wonderful. All right. Well, Kyra Gardner, thank you so much. It's a wonderful film. Living with Chucky is playing at Fantastic Fest. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.